Good morning, Husker fans, and welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here on this Monday morning for another episode of our podcast, and we have a few things to talk about here today. We've got some O-line, offensive line commitments for the Huskers in the 2025 class, an in-state miss as Chase Loftin picks Florida State, and another commitment that should be coming on Monday. So we'll talk about all that here this morning. Before we do, please make sure that if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section, hit the like button, and please check out huskerbigred.com. But Danny, how you doing this? How you doing this morning, man?
Good. It's July, which means it's the month that NCAA football comes out. We're getting closer to the season, and there's a lot of news. So we've had a busy writing weekend, that's for sure. Busy writing couple of days, actually, not just the weekend.
Yeah, it has been a pretty busy
Right,
weekend.
too. I know we mentioned offensive line commitments, but I forgot about the corner.
Yeah, Sierra Wright too, who committed over the weekend, who's a transfer. Obviously, we've talked about him quite a bit. But yeah, I guess in terms of the 2025 class, with offensive line, Nebraska picked up Brian Tapu. That was on Thursday. Flipped him, actually. I guess we'll call that a flip back from Oregon State. So that was kind of a weird situation. But he is a Nebraska Cornhusker commitment now, and so is Houston, Kahina Torres. Hopefully that's, somewhat in the ballpark of how to pronounce that. But the number one ranked player in Hawaii, recruited to Nebraska as a center. So 6'3", 265 pounds. These two guys are ranked very similarly. Kahina Torres is number 671 in the 24/7 sports composite rankings. Brian Tapu was 675. So that actually makes them the fourth and fifth highest ranked commitments in the 2025 class. For the Huskers, I know there's been a lot of, hand-wringing about offensive line recruiting, but do you think that this, will alleviate some of that, Danny?
Yeah, then there never should have been hand-wringing to begin with. But anyway, no, these two are very good players. Tapu and Kaina Torres are similar in the sense that they're physical. They can finish blocks well. Kaina Torres does a good job of staying in front of his man. He allows for clean pockets with the quarterback. And what I mean by that is he doesn't backpedal into the pocket. He stays firm. He stays square. He's 6'2", which is kind of small, but he's an interior offensive lineman, like you said, center. So, I don't think that will hamper him too much. And he's also willing to make blocks at the second level, which is interesting and indicates that he can move pretty well. So we're seeing a theme here for Nebraska offensive linemen. Be aggressive, be mobile, and also be able to kind of finish plays. And I think those are very solid traits to have for the offensive line class. And we're seeing Donovan Raiola's style kind of really shine here, and he's getting what he wants.
Yeah, and trying to build up that Polynesian pipeline. But Torres is a guy that he's coming as a center, but he's played right tackle before. That's where his most recent film is at. He's going to be a center for Nebraska, I believe, but he could also play guard. He's got great footwork. Just doesn't have the body, the length to be a tackle. Whereas Tapu, does have that natural length. He's 6'7", about 300 pounds, so a lot to really work with there. Kind of weird that he ended up going to Oregon State, but Nebraska got him back in. So I do think that they have a solid class. Sean Hammerback is a 3-star offensive tackle who's out there, 6'7". I think he's either 240 or 260, probably 260, but he's out of South Dakota. Kansas State is the other kind of top team in the mix. If Nebraska can get him, that would give them 3 offensive linemen in this class. They had 10 over the last 2 classes, including some guys that are coming in, on NIL deals. And so I just think that's something people need to keep in mind. So if you think about that as a whole, 13 linemen over 3 classes is just fine. And this class, they're up to 13 commitments. I don't think they're going to go much beyond 20. And I don't see how they can, looking at, they signed almost 30 kids last year. There's like about 80 freshmen and redshirt freshmen. So just something to keep in mind. But I did think that was a good pickup for Nebraska on the offensive line recruiting, and to get 2 guys that are in the top 5 in your class in back-to-back days, I think is a good thing. Or not back-to-back days, in the span of 4 days is a good thing. But could be another debate that maybe Nebraska should be getting some more highly ranked players. But for the most part, I think a nice job by Donovan Raiola and the offensive line coaches, kind of getting those commitments and shoring up that position group.
Highly ranked players don't matter on the offensive line, and I'll say that till I'm blue in the face. And so, to me, these are just fine. And then it also helps when you win. And I know we've said that for years and years and years. And reading some of your comments on our articles, I get that you guys just want to win. I get that you guys are frustrated, but things will come together when we start winning. Hopefully, it's this year. And sure, we could have had the bigger ranked guys, and we could have there were bigger guys to be had, but right now we're doing just fine on the offensive line in particular. I know there was another recruiting miss this weekend, but overall, I'm pretty happy with where we stand. There's not a position where I say, oh no, there's a lack of depth. We got to fix this here now or else we're in trouble. And it's been quite a while since we've been able to say that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they do need to start winning more games, and that will help. But you look at the blue chip ratio, 3 of 13. That's not going to be good enough to beat or compete with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. So they do have to start recruiting better, and I mean, hopefully that will happen with wins on the field. I do agree with you in the sense that you can develop guys, but the star rankings do matter for a reason, and there's a reason why. No team that has a blue chip ratio under 50% has ever, won a national championship, at least since they've started tracking that. So Nebraska does need to start getting closer to that, 50% range. I don't think that that's unrealistic if everything's working correctly, but they definitely have to start producing more on the field. And let's lead into that.
Things to start working correctly before we can, worry about a good blue chip ratio.
Yeah, but at any rate, leading into it, I do think that this leads into the Chase Loftin because when you do have blue chips in the state of Nebraska, I think you need to land them. And so how bad does the miss of Chase Loftin? He's going to Florida State. Was the second ranked player in the state of Nebraska, 6'6", 220 pounds. So how much does this sting for Nebraska football recruiting?
Not at all. I mean, we have tight ends coming out our ears. I mean, we have Bear Tenney, we have Carter Nelson, we have Thomas Fedoni right now. We have Ishmael Smith-Flores, Ian Flint, the kid from also Nebraska, Eric Ingerson. That's right, Eric Ingerson. I mean, it doesn't hurt at all. I mean, sure, would you have liked to have kept a kid in Nebraska? Yeah. Is Florida State more attractive right now? Yeah. Was there some questions as to how he handled his visit? Yeah. So combining all those things, I really don't think it stings. If tight end was a position of need, it would sting a little bit more. And yeah, again, I know you want to keep kids in state, and I'm using you as like the broader term, but I don't really think it stings. If he goes to Florida State and succeeds, good for him. I wish him well. I mean, again, until we start winning, we're not going to land some of these bigger kids, but as it stands right now, tight end is not a position of need. We have a ton. I could see where he would want to go to Florida State, and I don't really think it stings at all.
I disagree. I think it stings quite a bit. I think it's a pretty big miss. To miss on it, I just don't buy that argument that Nebraska's stacked to tight. Of all those tight ends you mentioned, 2 of them are blue chip prospects, and one of them's an incoming freshman, and the other one might not be here next year. So, if Thomas Fedoni has a good year and goes to the NFL, he's not going to be here. So I don't really understand that. Ishmael Smith-Flores is a project. Ian Flint's a solid player. Bear Tenney's a solid player, but
Keelan Smith.
They're all. I think he's a wide receiver, and still he's another. He's ranked in the thousands. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad players, but it's like I just don't buy that. Nebraska's not more stacked at tight end than Florida State or Michigan or any of these other programs. So personally, I just don't buy that. That's like a valid reason to miss on them. They just didn't. Whatever reason
when you mess around on your visit, then you find out really quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he made a decision before his visit. So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe he should have canceled the visit, but that doesn't mean that doesn't take away from the fact that they're missing on, I think a pretty good player that I do think would have been able to play here ahead of all those other guys. I know that there's other bodies there that can, take that spot, but still, I do think I just don't think it's to say that it's not a miss because they already have tight ends. Like I just don't buy that. I think
is it a miss? Yeah. Does it sting? No.
I think it does. I think it does because he could be playing ahead of. I would take him over every single guy that you mentioned there, except for Carter Nelson. So in that aspect, your next future starter after Carter Nelson should have been this kid, and now you have to hope that you can develop Bertani or one of these other guys into that guy. And so to me, I think it would have been much better to have, him and Bertani. And then you miss on, the Zybert kid. So you missed on 2 top 5 kids at tight end. Like, I get not getting both of them, but they should have got one. So to me, and anytime you miss on a blue chip from Nebraska, I think that's a miss. So it top 400 kid. I don't know exactly what happened. To me, going to Florida State's kind of a weird deal, especially since they're in the ACC. But yeah, I mean, I understand what people are saying. But I mean, to throw Thomas Fidone on, like, Thomas Fidone might not even be on the team in 2025. So I'm not really sure what people are talking about with that one. But at any rate, I do think that the in-state recruiting has gone fairly well. I'm worried about Christian Jones, and overall, I mean, looking at this class, they might not have another blue chip in it. So, I mean, maybe that one kid, Bryson Weber, but outside of that, that might be the only blue chip left in this class.
Maybe Jackson Carpenter. Jackson Carpenter? Maybe no.
No,
No.
You're thinking of Cantwell, and he's 2026.
Yeah, that's right. I am thinking of Cantwell. But yeah, I mean, to me, I personally am not worried. I mean, they've shown that they can recruit the tight end position. So Chase Loftin is a good player.
I mean, they've got one blue chip at the tight end position since they've been here. So I mean,
they also have Donovan. I mean, they also have Dylan Raiola. So
yeah, and I mean, I get that, but Dylan Raiola is also, I mean, it's
when you have a
nice
quarterback
that
can elevate your players, you don't necessarily need all 4 and 5 stars. And I totally get what you're saying, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to get the most out of these players if you have a good quarterback. And I think that's why, just looking back on it now, Raiola was so important to the grand scheme of things, besides just being a damn good football player.
Yeah, but also that should make it easier to recruit a really good tight end from like 90 miles away. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you.
But there should be hopefully more good news coming today for Nebraska fans on the defensive side of the ball. Jeremiah Jones, who's 6'4", 200 pounds, ranked 713th overall in the 2025 class, will hopefully be pledging today. It's sometime this afternoon. I don't know the exact time on it, but Louisville's in the mix. South Carolina's in the mix. It looks like he's going to be a Nebraska Cornhusker. So what are your thoughts on Jeremiah Jones?
I think he's a really good player. I think that he can provide some athleticism. He is, ranked as, or, categorized as an athlete. And so, that leads me to believe that he'll be able to, he has the potential to play multiple positions on the field. They have him at safety right now. He's the 4th overall player in the state of Kentucky. And so I really like this pickup. It seems like, I don't know, we have an abundance of safeties, but just because they're recruited at safety doesn't mean that they'll stay there. And when you look at this defense, it's not necessarily about positions, it's about athletes, and he's a pretty good athlete, good basketball player too. So I feel very confident about this commitment. He took a visit to Nebraska on June 21st, and it's between, like you said, Nebraska and Louisville, and I feel like he will be a Husker by the end of the day.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of difference, I guess, on what the height is. So his On3 profile has him at 6'5". The 24/7 Sports profile has him at 6'4". An article from Husker 24/7 has him at 6'5", 215 pounds. And guess what this kid runs in the 100-meter dash? Oh, just a 10.5. So yeah, this kid's an absolute freak. And he's, honestly, I think he has a chance to be a linebacker. It wouldn't surprise me if he bumped down and became a linebacker at some point. So, just a really dynamic kid. As a sophomore, had 100 tackles and 5 interceptions. So, he's a kid who can play the ball. I'm kind of interested in why he doesn't have, more offers. Nebraska, Louisville, just those only 2.
Eastern Kentucky and Murray State are his others, which is interesting.
Yeah, and he's from Murray, Kentucky, was unranked, and now he's kind of moved up to just got a composite ranking last month. So now he's in the 713 range. I think it would be, another one of those. I mean, there's even talk he could play offense. He's played wide receiver before. Like you said, he plays basketball. So, it could be a number of things. We've seen Nebraska move a bunch of guys, mostly from offense to defense, with Jaden Doss and Charles and some of those guys. But yeah, it could be, position where, he goes to offense, goes to, linebacker, safety, could play a few different spots, but, really athletic kid, lots of size. Tony White seems to really like him on the back end of the defense, and I think just they want athletic guys who can cover ground, and Jeremiah Jones can certainly do that. And all signs are pointing towards a commitment later today. So hopefully those all prove to be accurate.
Yeah, so that would be a really great get. Like you said, I love his size, 6'4", 6'5", 215, a very fast runner, can cover a lot of ground. I mean, to me, that signifies that he's going to be a good coverage safety as well as a player that can come down and make a tackle. So, or maybe not even safety, maybe like you said, a type of, wide receiver. There's multiple, ways that you can utilize his skill set. I personally see him at the safety position, but this would be a nice get for Nebraska. I feel like he's very kind of under recruited, but that's what the staff loves, and they love to develop players. And so I would be very happy if they were able to land Jones today.
Yeah, I think Jones would be a really, a nice pickup, another, another 3-star guy. And, look, those guys just, they can be NFL players too. And I think Matt Rule is, very on point where he's recruiting guys that have the potential to become NFL players. And you can see
he's
that
very close to a 4-star. Jonas too. He's numerically with the 24/7 Sports overall rankings. He's an 89, so very close to a 4-star. He could get there.
Yeah, I definitely could get there, and could bump up. So I mean, if you add him and it's Bryson Weber, right? Am I
Yep.
getting the name right there? So he's
Yeah.
a guy that's 6'2", also runs really well. So could be some really nice pieces. Looking at this 2025 class, it does, they still need some pass rush help. They still need an edge. I'm not sure why that's been an issue where they've struggled kind of, getting guys. Nicholas Clayton was on the board, and he just committed to Wisconsin. So Nebraska was kind of in the mix, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, kind of committed to Wisconsin. I mean, he visited there, not out of nowhere, but so I would still say, there's some work to do at edge, but outside of that, if end linebacker, if they could get Christian Jones, I would like that. But Jeremiah Jones could be a guy that could step down and be an in the box linebacker potentially down the road. So who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that it could go here for Nebraska. I'd say the recruiting trends overall haven't been great over the last week, but the offensive line commitments were huge. And then if we land Jones to start off the month, there would be some fireworks before the 4th. So I think overall we have a pretty good class. The one guy I am watching just overall is Latif, but I think we'll pay more attention to him in the fall. I'm not worried about it right now. It's just that he would be a great guy to have come in, and like the fans have said, once winning happens, then recruiting will get better, and so we just really need to see results on the field right now.
Yeah, and Latif, he said he was 100% committed in an interview after that interview he did with Tom Loy. So I think he's pretty solid. I
Yeah.
wouldn't worry too much about it. So all right, you guys. Well, we just have a few recruiting topics to cover today. We'll have some more stuff in another episode later this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to start getting into our 2025 or 2024, season predictions. I get that recruiting and season stuff mixed up, but the 2024 season now is like less than basically about 60 days away. So we're going to start doing
That's crazy.
Yeah, position previews. We'll get on the record with our win-loss predictions this year. So make sure you hit subscribe to the channel. Check out HuskerBigRed.com, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.